What's good, y'all? This week on the Mission Ready Men podcast, we're going to address the Trump verdict and his hush money or whatever crime he's been convicted of committing. We're going to get into that. And of course, Pride Month, I don't even like to call it Pride Month, is upon us. And we'll touch on that. And we're going to get back to the mission of this show and what it's really supposed to be about. And if we have time, we'll get into some other topics as well. We'll see how long-winded I get. So we have a lot to get into and not a lot of time to do it. So let's get after it. So let's get some business out of the way first. Please go ahead and like and subscribe and share these videos. The more you like and share, the easier it is for us to reach more people and less beholden we are to the algorithm, the dreaded algorithm. And you can also follow us on socials at Mission Ready Men on all the platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can also find the audio podcast on Spreaker, Spotify, and wherever else you like to get your podcast from. And if you like the shirt I'm wearing, Mission Ready Men shirt, go ahead and head over to 7armors.com. That's the number 7armors.com for our audio listeners. And now that is out of the way, let's hit it.
Hit it, sweetheart.
It has been almost a week now since former President Trump has been found guilty of 34 counts of falsifying or whatever he's been convicted of. We still really don't know. I've read analysis from legal scholars like Alan Dershowitz and Jonathan Turley and Mark Garagos, none of whom have any idea what crime was actually committed. Even American Pravda outlets like CNN and MSDNC, before the trial was over, they had a hard time figuring out whether or not they could get a conviction with the evidence, the so-called evidence that had been presented. Their star witnesses were a porn star and a convicted perjurer. And the porn star signed a document saying that she had never had a relationship with Trump. I know she recanted that shortly after. But the other star witness, Michael Cohen, is a convicted perjurer, and on the stand, he admitted to grand larceny from the Trump organization. I think that calls into serious question, his credibility and hers, frankly. But we're not gonna try and relitigate that here. I'm not a lawyer and don't even really play one on a podcast. But I do want to make a few points. First, the number of people that I know and see online who are celebrating this as some sort of victory is astonishing. It really is. People are believing that Stephanie Clifford, which is Stormy Daniels' real name, and Michael Cohen, and the jurors somehow saved democracy. Even though from them, democracy is just a euphemism for totalitarianism, America hating totalitarianism. These people truly believe that we are now better off with a created economy, an invasion at our borders, multiple wars around the world, and a group of countries who hate us are about to release a currency designed to supplant the dollar as the world's reserve currency, which could have some disastrous effects on our economy. But yeah, let's go after this guy for a bookkeeping error while all those things around the world are happening, and rapists and robbers and carjackers and murderers are allowed to just roam the streets. What President Trump was found guilty of probably wouldn't even incur a fine, or that would be the most it would incur. And that's if the statute of limitations hadn't already run out. And the FEC and the DOJ both declined to pursue the matter. And I know that some people think that doesn't necessarily mean that there was no evidence of wrongdoing, but whatever it wasn't enough for them to pursue it. And the statute of limitations had run out. This was a miscarriage of justice, and the people who brought the prosecution and the people who are celebrating the conviction have allowed their hatred for one guy to outpace their love for this country, assuming they even have any love for this country. But here's where it gets good, because since the verdict came down, the Trump campaign has raised over $200 million, and more billionaires have pledged to give him even more money. But even aside from the billionaires, 70% of the money that they've collected has come from small dollar donations. 70%. These are people who are paying attention, and 70% of small dollar donations and first time political donors. So these people understand that what happened to former President Trump was nothing more than the persecution of a political rival by the people in power. But let me know in the comment section. I'd love to know, are you going to vote for Trump? Were you voting for Trump before and are still going to? Were you not going to vote for him before, but now you are? Or did this conviction somehow sway you away from voting for Trump? I would really love to know. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. One last thing about Trump, and I know this is a bit unusual, but hear me out. This guilty verdict now renders Trump a prohibited possessor of firearms. As a convicted felon, he has lost the right to vote and the right to keep and bear arms. Now, I know DeSantis, with respect to the voting, has said that he's going to make sure that Trump does not lose his right to vote in Florida come November. And I appreciate that. That's great. But I don't think there's anything he can do about his Second Amendment rights. I think those are gone pending appeal. And I know that since President Trump has Secret Service protection, it's probably not going to affect his life in any real way at this point. But it's still a huge deal. It's a huge deal. It demonstrates, again, that as far as they're concerned, your rights mean nothing. Absolutely nothing. And if you get to, well, anyway, we've established many times that they hate you. And there has been a meme going around for a long time. And I don't know if it's an actual quote from him. I think it is, but it's a picture of Trump, and it says, they're not after me, they're after you, I'm just in the way. I'm pretty sure he said something along those lines. And I used to think, because it's been going around for a long time, I used to think that was a bit hyperbolic. But I've come to the conclusion, and it wasn't just the trial that did it, I've come to the conclusion that is pretty accurate. I mean, Trump was one of the elites. He had money, he had power, and he didn't threaten their power structure. But as soon as he threw his hat in the ring, as soon as he decided to run for president, that's when the attack started. That's when the attack started. Because they knew that he knew their secrets. And they also knew that he had the resources, which meant that they couldn't control him. So immediately they began to attack. So even if they don't get away with this vendetta against Trump in the long run, they now know that it will work against anyone else who does not have the resources that Trump has. That said, that said, if you're a believer, if you're a follower of Jesus Christ, you have access to resources beyond your wildest imagination. So do not be afraid. Do not be afraid of the persecution if it comes to that. And if you're bold and outspoken, especially when it comes to Christianity, but anything that goes against the establishment narrative, though that persecution is going to come, those attacks are going to come. So be prepared. Be prepared by getting right with God, number one. But also be prepared for the fight that is going to come regardless of the arena. Okay. This podcast is called Mission Ready Men, and there's been a lot going on lately, and so I haven't given much time to the main reason why I started this show. Now, even before starting this program, I've been calling out men and sounding the alarm on the attack on manhood and masculinity, and calling it toxic masculinity and all that nonsense. Most of the problems that we face in this country, and a case can probably be made that all of the problems that we face in this country are a result of men abandoning God. When you abandon God, your moral compass gets all out. Everything becomes about you. Everything becomes about what people can do for you, how you can advance your position to the expense of everybody. And I'm not saying that everybody is that selfish, but that is the nature. That is the nature of men. And when I say men, in this instance, I'm talking about people in general. But everything becomes about you, and the definition of manhood gets twisted, and it gets twisted into how many women you can sleep with, or how many kids you sire, or how tough you are, or how much pleasure you can derive from anything, and how many people you crush or beat down for disrespecting you, or how much money and power you have, regardless of whether it's gained through legitimate or illegitimate means. So we're going to talk about what it means to be a man, and the biblical definition of manhood. And we're not going to have time to get it all in one shot. So today we're just going to focus on the perfect example that the Bible gives us of what a man is supposed to be. And that example, obviously, is Jesus Christ himself. Matthew 20:28 says, "The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many." Jesus didn't come to earth so that everyone could serve his needs. He didn't indiscriminately impregnate women. He didn't use his power to put down weaker people. He used his power to save us. He used his power so that we could have eternal life. 1 Corinthians 16:13 says, "Be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong." Strong, godly men not only have a relationship with God, but their relationship with God is the most important thing in their life. And a relationship with God informs everything else that you do. Everything else that you do. And studies show that people who do have a relationship with God, who read their Bible, who pray, and whose relationship with God extends beyond worshiping on Sundays in church, those people are happier, healthier, more satisfied with their lives than their non-believer counterparts. And that's because the Bible teaches us to rely on God for our happiness, our well-being, our health, for all of our physical needs in this life. And it teaches us how to interact with our families. It teaches us how to interact with our wives, our children, our communities. And praying gives us that connection with God so that we know how to apply the lessons that we are learning in the Bible. And without that, we're seeing the results of what can happen in the country right now. We're seeing the lawlessness. We're seeing the collapse in real time of a country that was originally established as a result because the founders knew that it was a blessing from God and acknowledged that. And the further we stray from that, the further we fall. And we're seeing that happen in real time. So we have some work to do. But I am running a little short on time. So we're going to get into this more in going forward in the weeks ahead, because this podcast, this community that we're trying to build is about helping men become mission ready and helping men get back to that relationship with God. And we need to get mission ready and know how to do that according to biblical principles. Okay. We're going to get you out of here with a couple of quick hits in the adventures of the brain dead morons. First, we have more from these ridiculous queers for Palestine, and these idiots blocked a sin parade in Philadelphia. I don't even like to use their name for it, so I call it a sin parade. But check this out. It's just so stupid. I mean, part one of their chants was Palestine will live forever. They wouldn't live for 5 minutes in Palestine. It their advocacy for Palestine is like cows advocating for more filet mignon. It's like hogs advocating for more spare ribs and pulled pork. It just doesn't make any sense. None. Anyway, let, let's move on because what I have next is just amazing. We have to talk about Fredo. Fredo Cuomo. He had a debate with a libertarian by the name of Dave Smith on Patrick Bet David's podcast. Well, it was a special event put on by Patrick Bet David, and it's on Rumble and YouTube. You should check it out. I had never heard of Dave Smith before this, but he absolutely wrecked Fredo, completely destroyed. And not that that's terribly difficult to do, mind you, but and there were a few instances where he just got straight embarrassed. There were a couple of times, and the clips are too long, but there were a couple of times where Dave Smith was quoting him or paraphrasing something he said, and Cuomo would deny it and say, "Get the clip, get the clip." They would get the clip, and Dave Smith would be right, and Fredo would be embarrassed again. He had no embarrassment. He had no shame whatsoever, which is par for the course with these leftists. They have no shame. And there were a few takeaways from this, and I actually watched the whole thing. It was a little over 3 hours long, I think, and I did watch it. But one of my takeaways, and I just alluded to a little bit, was how effortlessly they lie. It's like breathing. And Patrick Bet David took a lot of flack for hiring Cuomo, and rightfully so, because Patrick Bet David and the people he has on his show are known for being straight shooters and dealing in facts, and that's not that's not Fredo's strong suit at all. And I don't agree with everything I hear on from Patrick Bet David and the people that he has on his show. But one of the things that I appreciate about him and his show is that when I don't agree with some of the things they say, they present it in a way that actually makes me think. I actually sometimes have to re-examine, and there's been a couple of occasions when, and nothing major. I mean, I have my core beliefs that are what they are, but there's been a couple of things where a couple of times where they've said something or presented something, and I've had to reevaluate my position on things. And I can't say that with every show I watch, even the conservative ones I watch. Sometimes it's just they're preaching to the choir, and that's fine too. That's fine too. But here's a clip of Dave Smith just absolutely annihilating Fredo on the lockdowns.
I hear your understanding of the pandemic. I don't agree. I lived it closer than you in many ways, closer than any of you probably in many ways.
Wow.
And there were
Narcissistic
absolutely
much?
mistakes made. The idea that it was a totalitarian regime, that's hyperbole.
First of all, when I describe the lockdowns that swept this nation in 2020 as totalitarian, just to be clear, I'm not being hyperbolic. When you're waking up every morning to watch your TV, to find out from your governor what you're allowed to do today, including am I allowed to go to work? Am I allowed to have a funeral for my father? Am I allowed to see my family? Am I allowed to step outside without a cover on my face? There is one word and one word only for that, and that is totalitarianism. I'm sorry. That's not slightly hyperbolic. Now, you could argue that this totalitarianism was justified because of the virus, but it's certainly not, and it's not, but you could argue that, but it certainly is totalitarian. If we ever looked on paper, any of us at any point pre-COVID, and said, this government is instituting this policy, we would all recognize that as being totalitarian, as totalitarian as any society has ever existed. If that word doesn't apply to lockdowns, then it doesn't apply to anything.
Of course, just absolutely destroyed Cuomo, and he's 100% correct. Everything about the government's response to the Wu flu was totalitarian. Everything. And even then, I couldn't believe the allegedly smart people that I knew and counted as friends who thought everything that they were doing was a great idea. Could not believe it. But here's another clip where he absolutely takes Cuomo to the woodshed. Absolutely takes him to the woodshed for being a crappy journalist.
Here's one person in cable news who did some real journalism, okay? Tucker Carlson he got Governor Murphy from New Jersey on his show. Yeah. And he asked him one simple question that was never asked of any of the other lockdown governors. And you know what the question was? He had just shut down, it was either a church or a synagogue, I can't remember. And he goes, oh, wait a minute, so you just shut down this temple and arrested people for worshiping. Where do you get the authority to do that? Because I've read the First Amendment, and it's pretty clear that you have the freedom of religion, and so where do you get the authority to shut that down? And you know what Governor Murphy said? He said, well, I'm not thinking about the Constitution. That's above my pay grade. So let me, just to make this
That's
clear,
a stupid
okay?
Answer.
Yeah, it sure is, but you know what? Your brother and none of the rest had a better one. They just never got asked that question.
But it has nothing to do with the First Amendment.
Yeah, of course it does, Chris. Here's the bottom line. There's no clause in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights that says, unless there's a virus that we don't know that much about and then this all goes away. The point is that it was completely criminal for all of these governments to lock down. They had no authority to derive the right to lock down a state from. And yet you, instead of anyone at CNN thinking, hey, if we have Andrew Cuomo on here every single night, maybe someone should ask him that question. They went, no, give him a cushy interview with his brother. Like, you don't find that incredibly corrupt?
No.
I was actually watching that episode of Tucker Carlson's show, and I was dumbfounded that Murphy said that. I absolutely could not believe what I had heard. But did you catch what Cuomo said there in the middle? He said it had nothing to do with the First Amendment. Seriously? This guy, Fredo, is a Yale educated lawyer. And he attended Yale, I think, back when a degree from Yale actually meant something. I think it's fallen on hard times now, and Cuomo's not doing much to bolster its reputation. But that clip proved yet again that he has zero understanding or even interest in the Constitution. None. Remember this?
And please, show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Really? Really? He was wrong in this debate with Dave Smith. He was wrong in, I think that was 2018, no, 2020, excuse me. And he got embarrassed after that little soundbite as well. And he's still wrong. He's still wrong. What Governor Murphy did had everything to do with the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people to peaceably assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. It's right there in the First Amendment, Fredo. I mean, come on. Yale? Really? You don't even have to go as far as Yale. I mean, 6th grade civics. Anyway, folks, that's all I got for you today. I will try to do better the next time. Thank you all for watching and listening. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and share these videos. Share the audio podcast as well. Let's spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and the message of the blessing of liberty, which he's given us, so that we can preserve it for generations to come. And remember, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.